relevant to our experiences every single day. So first thing that is I need you to know is that race is socially constructed. Race is socially constructed. So what does that mean? Someone? Yeah.
You go to a hospital and they ask you for blood, they would ask you, like, we need a black donor for blood. It's not biological.
It is so that race does not have a biological definition. And that's really hard to grasp because we have bought into and reified, you know that word, the concept of race so much in our everyday experiences that we kind of just accept that we know what race, that it is a thing, first of all, that it actually exists, and also that we know what it looks like, right? So if I ask you, what race are you? What answers would you give me? Yes, sir? Huh? Oh, please, because I know your response is going to be so rich. It's not going to be black. You're not going to say black. You're not that basic. I'm sure you have something to say that's probably going to reify what I'm trying to, a point I'm trying to make. So please do. Please.
I'm part Korean.
You're part Korean? Okay, I can see that. So what do you call that? Like Tiger Woods calls himself Black and Asian? Black and Asian. Called Black and no, this is, you think I'm making it up? No, he really has a word for himself. Look up on your phone, what does Tiger Woods call racially consider himself? Or what is Tiger Woods' race? And you're gonna come up with the word he created. It's even in textbooks, like sociology textbooks, because we talk about it. But do you call yourself, what do you call yourself? I say black. You just say black, but you're mixed. So if somebody asks you your race, you just feel comfortable, you just say
It
black.
says Cablination.
Caucasian,
What?
Caucasian, black, and Asian.
We don't know.
So the reason why we even talk about him in that fact that he called himself that sociologically, we talk about it because he's not willing to identify himself as only black. And the reason why he constructed the word that he did call black and Asian is to make, he believes, he's giving credence to the fact that it's important to recognize all of his racial aspects that go into making him who he is. And it's not okay just to call him black. Of course, the black community, or we call it like Black Twitter, went off about that, of course. Because they're like, and so Mariah Carey did the same thing.
Yes.
I know, that's your girl, I know. But she did the same thing. I forgot what she called it.
She said that like she doesn't
Happy
like when she
birthday.
was her
Thank
first
you.
she said she would claim her blackness. She said, well, if I'm saying that I have a black father and then I also have a mother that's from European descent or whatever, you know, I'm claiming that I'm mixed. I'm not saying that I'm black or one side.
Right, the problem that we had with it, and I don't say we like I'm included, but the problem that we had with it in the black community was like, it feels like because you don't want to accept your blackness, you're going out of your way to identify other aspects of who you are so as not to avoid being defined as only black. And then that's the part that feels offensive, like, what if you are black? What's the problem? And Cardi B is the culprit as well. She's done the same thing.
She only claims she's black
When she
when
wants
it
to
benefits
admit
her.
Yeah, when she wants to say
Right,
nigga.
but she's very specific about saying that she has Dominican and Trinidadian ancestry, which is Caribbean, which is still black, which is African descent. But if you need to go out of your way to explain all that to me, at the end of the day, the source is still Africa, and so you're black, right? But so that's how we feel about it. But the other side of that, playing devil's advocate, is saying why is it wrong if these are actually all of the ways in which I identify and who make me who I am, then I should deserve the right to be very specific about identifying every aspect of me. Right? So that's the argument. Now, is black a race?
No.
Is African American a race?
The ethnic part, yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about that. What'd you say? The what
The
part?
African part.
The African part. Okay, so what does that mean?
So it's like African is like a race. Like all black people originate from Africa. But America is just my nationality, it's not my race.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction.
like my race is not American. I cannot claim it.
That's dope. I like that. I like how you self-identify. Yes, sir?
I would thought they wouldn't call it ethnicity.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with in my head right here. Thank you for bringing us here. I do have to say, I like how you identify, but linguistically, the way that you're saying it, someone might say that's wrong. And the wrong part they would say is African, like saying that I'm African, would be by definition how we define an ethnicity. Ethnicity is defined by common cultural traits, common location, right? That's what determines ethnicity. And there can be several kinds of ethnicities under any one of the categories of race that have been constructed, right? So they would say African American is an ethnic identification. That's ethnicity. If somebody says I'm African American, they're letting you know that that's their ethnicity. Culturally, it's a fusion of those two things, and typically centered in the United States of America. It gets complicated though, because children, first generation born African children, first generation American born African children, descendants of parents who were born in Africa, also think that the definition of African American communicates who they are more than it communicates who we are as being born in America. So there's still debate about that, right? However, I think that most people on a census, they have as a racial category Black. So, and that changed, and this is interesting, watch this. When I was in high school, I didn't pay much attention to censuses and stuff like that. But I do know that there was ethnic options for how people identified on the census in abundance. So, for example, Polish American, Czech American, Irish American, Italian American. Those were ethnic identifications that you could check off on the census, indicating not only one, that are you certainly yes white, certainly yes European, but of specific ethnic origins of European descent. They did away with that since y'all been born. And they just categorized all these Europeans into one category called white. And then use those numbers that they give census-wise as justification for saying that non-whites are minorities and whites are the majority. When traditionally in this country, neither Italians nor Irish were considered white. They also were discriminated against. They also were lynched and hung from trees. Do y'all understand what I'm trying to tell you? They also drew pictures of them like monkeys and stuff like they did about Black people. So they weren't willing to consider Italians and Irish at a certain point in this country as just white people like us at a certain point. But now, politically, the definition of who gets to be called white and or not have changed. Do y'all get that? Can you tell me some systematic reasons perhaps for that? Why would a government do that? Yes, ma'am.
Is it like they feel like they're losing numbers, so they have to widen their pool of association?
They're losing numbers, so widening the pool of association. Absolutely, certainly. How many of you, while you were young, noticed that in textbooks and things, written by white scholars, they were projecting, like by the year, they would say 2050, by the year 2050, the United States of America will be a majority Hispanic. Have you seen those projections? They started making them like in the very late 90s, the early 2000s. So I'm assuming that was in the textbooks that you were reading and stuff coming through school. So yes, that was projections made by very well-respected, esteemed demographers who project how the population trends move and how demographics change and how an entire group of people in a certain area change or evolve or adapt. So I would think that perhaps creates some frenzy in the minds of those who administratively have the control and the power to define things to so if we say that the United States government redefined the definition of whiteness in order to gain more numbers so as to still be able to mobilize greater power, then which theoretical perspective are we likely talking about? Absolutely. Why?
Power was the word that you, like, this authority.
Yes. It's all about power. And so any group that is in charge traditionally has always attempted to defend their position. Okay? There's always been, in some way, some type of power structure. How violent or not it was might have changed. What it looked like might have changed. How it was facilitated might have changed. But since the beginning of humans, whoever is in power certainly does attempt to maintain their dominance. Now, I say that because oftentimes we talk about, or even I've heard, especially for black sociologists, we often get accused of attempting to make everything look blue. Like everything is a demise and everything is against us as black people, right? But I want to be clear in saying that it is nothing unnatural about a group of people who are in power attempting to maintain their dominance. That has always happened. That has happened between the African tribes fighting against each other to maintain power and dominance for survival, right? So that being said, we understand certainly what the goal is and why that goal exists. I just think that we get labeled as being disgruntled because we don't want to settle for being oppressed forever. It's like, shut up and take your oppression and we'll be all right. But we ain't gonna shut up and take our oppression. That's just not gonna happen. It's not the kind of people we are. We're super resilient and strong, and in spite of however we're beat up, you still see somebody, you still see a phoenix rising from the copper. Always. Always. And it doesn't matter what we're up against. It's just who we are, right? As a people. So, race. Let's get the actual definitions. Somebody give me the definition of race.
A sociological way of understanding racial categories. Race is not biologically identifiable. Previous racial categories were assigned based on pseudoscience and were used to justify racist practices. That's what it is so far.
Yeah, those are those. But what does the definition say? And so all that's good information.
It is.
You need to know all that information too. But I hope the definition is shorter. No? That's the actual definition?
It is. That's the thing. They didn't give a definition for it.
Race, I'm gonna give you a definition. A way to identify categories of people. That's it. And it really should say a socially constructed way. Now, the term, so for example, the category Negroid, popular in the 19th century, evolved into the term Negro by the 1960s, and this term from use and was replaced with African American. This latter term was intended to celebrate the multiple identities that a black person might hold, but the word choice is a poor one. It lumps together a large variety of ethnic groups under one umbrella term, while excluding others who could accurately be described by the label, but who do not meet the spirit of the term. For example, actress Charlize Theron is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed African American. She was born in South Africa and then became a U.S. citizen. Is her identity that of an African American, as most of us understand the term? Okay, I said that already. I didn't know they had that there. Where did that came from? Okay, ethnicity is a term that describes shared culture, the practices, values, and beliefs of the groups. I gave it to you differently at the very beginning of the semester. I said the beliefs and the attitudes and values, the BAVs. Either way you put it, doesn't matter, it means all the same thing. So that's the shared culture of a group. And the culture might include shared language, religion, tradition, and other commonalities. Like race, the term ethnicity is difficult to describe and its meaning has changed over time, blah, 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 blah. And that's also what I was saying about how the census has changed because the way we identify ethnicity has changed. When I was coming up, I'm from an all-white area, pretty much, and it was an Italian area, very specific, where they do the Real Housewives of New Jersey, and also where they do Wild Wives. That's where I'm from. So I don't know if you've ever seen those shows, and you see the town, and they go to their friends' house and stuff like that. I'm from that kind of a and so Italian people, growing up with them, they have always like a boy wanting to, I think I told y'all, a boy wanted to fight me because I called him white, and he was Italian. Like, called me all kinds of pictures. I'm not white, like, he was like in tears, like, you about to fight like that, like somebody called him a nigga, like how somebody called you a nigga to your face, a white person called you a nigga, and you was ready to rock. That's how he was ready to rock when I called him a white, shut up, white boy. No. So, I'm just making sure you understand the severity to which Italian people particularly, and then there also were some Irish people as well, but both of those groups specifically of white people were very proud about their ancestry and their culture and their tradition and their heritage and their journeys to America. A lot of them knew, like, when their parents came over from those countries and went and signed documents at Ellis Island, they went to go to Ellis Island to go find their great-great-great-grandparents' names. Like, they're not about forgetting their history, typically. Right? And so me coming up in the 90s, that's what I experienced. Everybody had a very proud, cultural proud approach to celebrating their ethnic origins. Go ahead.
So what about Greek people? I heard they was treated bad too.
Yeah. So the Greeks pretty much warred with all those Europeans in those areas. So to call the Greek white is like, to them calling them the people who they fought against. So you get what I mean? Like, however, that has changed significantly, and that this is how it has changed. And this is a word, I'm not sure it's in here, but I'm giving it to you now, so make sure you know it. It's called selective forgetting. Okay? Selective forgetting is a sociological term we use to talk about how what we have seen happen over time, and that is people, when they see the benefit, just like you said about Cardi B, same thing. But that's the opposite way, but still the same thing. When they see the benefit of being identified as a thing, then there'll be that thing. But white Europeans who do have some kind of ethnic affiliation have the privilege of hiding their ethnic identity if they want to. And it has become economically beneficial to do that in this country. So recently, when I meet Irish people, they are not likely to tell me that they're Irish. They probably won't say anything at all. I don't think that they would deny it, but they probably just wouldn't say it at all. If somebody asked them, I believe they would say it. But they get the privilege of not having to disclose any kind of stigma associated with not being just considered from the quote-unquote majority in this particular country, right? You know, hi, I'm Irish. Like, I don't know what you're about to say, right? But hi, I'm Irish is don't do that. That's selective forgetting. So I'm selectively forgetting my ancestry because it benefits me. The opposite for Cardi B would be I'm selectively choosing to identify however I feel like it because I can so that it benefits me. So I selectively forget which part I want with a particular context because I'm eating off everybody. Found out this morning she just got crossover artist of the year, Latin artist of the year.
Right.
That's never happened for a rapper before. So what she's doing is finagling several markets. It's brilliant in terms of her pockets. But if she truly feels this way as a person, and this is what I really believe she does, because we know that Cardi's not very educated. And I'm not saying that she has to be. But that makes me believe that the things that she says is truly not just for the song. You know what I mean? Like, it's truly how she feels in real life. I believe her songs reified that. If it were just, if we could just pass it off to, oh, it's just fictitious, it's just to create some kind of imagery, it's make-believe, it's like a movie, that's one thing. But we kind of know that the range of her thought process, while it is growing, of course, naturally, because she's just being exposed more. You don't gotta go to school to grow. You know what I mean? Like, she's growing because she's traveling all over the world and meeting different people, and so she's definitely growing. And so her perspective is going to change regardless. And she'll probably, even because she's a child, at some point even go to school. You know what I mean? Like, just because I'm on some, grown girl stuff. But I said all that to say is part of what I'm writing about, and I hope to really, since I took off this summer, I didn't take off this summer, I'm teaching online. But I took off being in the classroom this summer so I could really get this stuff out of my head and on some paper and really focus on that for like 3 months over the summer. The fact that she named her daughter Culture to me though,
When it came, when it came.
is, that's the part, that is really what sends it home for me about how potentially dangerous imagery is. And it's kind of like, in a weird, ironic way, she understands that she perhaps may be one of the biggest influences on culture in this country herself. Now, I don't think that she's 100% conscious of that, but for her to ironically name her daughter Culture, though, that part, I gotta get this shit off my chest, y'all. Oh my Lord. You gotta write about that sociologically. It is very interesting. And scary, because I'm a babysitter, y'all have to live here, and it's scary because I'm potentially seeing what the results will be 20 years from now, and that's the world that you inherit. But it's still interesting that it's kind of done blatantly out in the open, and we passively participate in still socially constructing our own demise. I'm glad you got that on tape, Auntie. Okay? Because somebody put some quotes around that and send it to me in my email. So, we were talking about minority groups and dominant groups and numbers, and how potentially systematically numbers are, the definition of how we get those numbers changes because the people who have the power to change the definition are the people who want to be considered the majority. That's interesting. If I get to choose, if I want words to benefit me and I have the power to change the dictionary, then who wins the game? Me, right? Like, I'm playing the game, I want to win the game, and I'm in charge of making the rules. You win, I'm about to win this game, right? Okay. And if somebody interrupts that game, then we suppress whatever part of that is, because we have the right to change the rules, so we're going to cut you off, cut that off, whatever you do messing me up from winning my game, because I created this game. It's like when my kids play games, they'll make up, I made up a game, and then Symphony was older than Saeed, right? So she would have more sense, and she's a slickster anyway. Like, but I do that too, so she's truly herself. But anyway, she'll make a game that's impossible for him to win. And he'll really be trying to win, like really trying, like that's my big sister, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna beat the kid. I'll be like, so, but then I hear him get frustrated because he can't win. And so then I'll come in and I'll be like, what y'all doing? Why are you so mad? I can't win the game, I won't play no more. He's like, you be the sole loser, Mommy. Why you be the sole loser? Because you can't win my game. And then she'll explain to me what the game is, and whatever it is, it's not even possible for him to win. I'm like, but that's not fair, because you started off with more than him anyway. And there's not even enough moves for him to catch up, so he can never catch up. Like, I'll be explaining that to them, they won't be looking at me. He'll be looking at me, like, looking at her, like, you set me up. And then she'll be looking at me, like, huh? Like, she's oblivious, like, she didn't know that it wasn't possible for him to win. But that's kind of like real life. You get the point? Kind of set up for us to win. So when we win, it's because we have learned to jump over hurdles that are shoulder high. Every time we take 3 steps, kind of like the conditions under which we have to achieve. But a minority group is any group of people who, because of their physical or cultural characteristics, are singled out from others in society in which they live for differential and unequal treatment. Okay? It does not mean that we're less in number. We know that we are not less in number. Not possible. Ain't no way. With mixed couples and all of us, we everywhere. We everybody good. And y'all ever looked up when they were doing those genetic tests on white people who started freaking out when they found out they had African blood? Y'all ever looked at that? Look that up on YouTube, y'all. Like white prejudice man finds out he's part African. See that? Google that on YouTube. Hilarious. You can't believe it. We're everywhere. Our presence has been everywhere. Okay? So it is not about numbers. It is about access to power. A group is a minority group because they don't have access to power. In South Africa, do you know how many millions of South Africans were there while they were dominated by the Afrikaans, who were the white Dutch people who called themselves Afrikaans instead of Africans? Did y'all know that? Y'all know that? The white Dutch people in South Africa called themselves AFRICAANS. They gave themselves that name because they still want to say that we are African because we were born here, because for generations they have been there in South Africa because they were originally oppressors there. Do y'all with me? Okay? So, so they want to say, yes, this is our land, I'm Afrikaan. And find a separate way to identify white people from Africa so that they can what? What's the goal? Why were they there in the first place?
Dominate,
Take what?
land.
Resources. Period. Africa is the richest place in the world. There's billions in the soil. Y'all hear me? The dirt. You think about that. Like you walking on billions everywhere you go. My baby daddy right now is asking me to find out how to get into mining because he has a whole bunch of land and there's nothing but gold and diamonds there. I don't know nothing about the mine, and I'm like, I gotta go to like Texas or something where they do the oil digging, like, like network is everything. I'm like, I damn sure ain't never met nobody like, yo, we about to get this mining business. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work on that, because I got to get the gas, but I gotta figure out, I have to, just like, what's the word? Propinquity. Right? I gotta get my propinquity right, so I can go meet me some. You did? You had it right there. You go propinquity. I gotta get my propinquity right, so I can find me some miners. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who to ask. If y'all ever meet a miner,
I got a question.
Huh?
Is it like that everywhere in Africa or only certain parts?
Of course, there are certain parts that have more than others, but in the parts that we don't know about, it's simply because we haven't looked, really. You know what I mean?
I'm going to Africa.
The land is rich. So they don't want to say we're Dutch, because then that's like me recognizing that this shit is not mine. And I'm over here taking, right? So they found a way to call themselves African, but still to distinguish themselves differently from the other Africans. Nonetheless, there still was only, watch these numbers. Let's say maybe at the height of it, there was 10,000 Dutch people there. Okay? Now how many Africans do you think were there? 20 million? 10 million? 25? I don't know. What's the population of South Africa right now? A million. Okay, so millions of South Africans were there, but guess who still was dominating? The 10,000 Dutch people. Okay? So it is not about numbers in terms of, it's about power. And even when minority groups in terms of numbers, lower number groups of people are able to access and acquire a bunch of power, they still can dominate large groups of people. So it is not about numbers. That is a myth. Lose that one altogether. Never ever think that there's more of anyone else other than our melanated cells on this earth. Because there is more melanin everywhere. And white people understand that DNA-wise, whiteness is being erased. Now, if we said blackness was being erased, and really blackness is being erased because black males are being erased, and that erases blackness. But if we said that, we become alarmed, right? So if you were white and we said whiteness is being erased, would you be alarmed? And would you be trying to protect that interest? You'd be a really progressive white liberal if you didn't want to protect that interest.
I'm like, we're all going something. Your time is coming.
So the dominant group is the group that has the power. The subordinates, y'all know that word? If you don't know the word, it means subordinate means lesser than, like
You said
somebody else is in
subordinate.
charge of you.
You said
Dominant and then subordinate. Dominant just means the group that has power. Minority group has no power. Remember that has nothing to do with numbers. Subordinate group is the one that is the minority group. The one sub, S-U-B, sub, ord, O-R-D, INT, I-N-A-T-E. Subordinate is actually how that would be broken down. So it's about power. The scapegoat theory from Dollard suggests that the dominant group will displace its unfocused aggression onto the subordinate group. Scapegoats. Okay, an example from the last century is the way Adolf Hitler was able to blame the Jewish population for Germany's social and economic problems. In the United States, recent immigrants have been frequently the scapegoat for the nation's or individuals' woes. Many states have enacted laws to disenfranchise immigrants. These laws are popular because they let the dominant group scapegoat a subordinate group, hence ICE. Do y'all know what they are doing right now? We don't think about it, but imagine what it would feel like to be a Mexican immigrant in the United States right now. With your children. They are taking these people's children and putting them into like concentration camps. Where they have no supervision and they're being raped. And many of them are missing. And many of their families, when they get like they're supposed to be held there until they can turn them over back to Mexico so that their families can come get them or whatever. But they're getting there and they're being sold into child slavery. These kids are not making it back to their families after the United States ICE takes them. I have a homegirl who adopts kids, or she has 2 other adopted kids, and she had adopted a baby, a Mexican baby from Connecticut, from the foster care system of the state. So through the state, they had this baby. She applied, went to Connecticut, had to go back and forth through the paperwork over a course of 6, 7, 8 months, something like that. And I think they got the baby when she was, like they started the process when she was newborn. So by the time the baby's 8 months, 9 months, or whatever, you know, their fine was finalized. They bring the baby home to here. They live out by BWI somewhere in an apartment building, a condo, one of the expensive ones, like $5,000 a month, whatever. Her husband is a filmmaker. He filmed something about Trump and won an Emmy or something recently. I don't know, but I got one. But anyway, they get the baby home. The baby had been there for about a week and a half. That second weekend, she said ICE knocked on her door. They took that baby from them and said that baby doesn't belong here. They were able to track the baby and where they were and everything because it was legal. It wasn't like no illegal shit. So it was all through the state. They had an address and stuff. There wasn't lying about where or anything, you know, nothing like that. But I guess the person who had the baby got sent back, and so when she couldn't, you know, wasn't allowed anymore, I guess, to give the baby to foster care. You know, because technically she's not a citizen herself, the mom, and so they sent our mom back, and they said they had to send the baby back.
But I thought it was a law that even if your parent is an immigrant, you're born in America, you're an American citizen. Like I thought that's what.
I don't know. I just know I came to get her, and she was crying. So while she was talking to me about it, she was very depressed about it and stuff like that. And then she was like, I was saying things like that, like speculating, like, you know, you should do this, you should do that. She was like, I'm just tired. And so
They give her her money back?
I don't think so.
See,
I don't think so. But then I keep thinking to myself, what is going to happen to that baby? When that baby could have been as spoiled as the other ones. Because the other baby that they got was a baby they got off the streets of Germany. A crackhead literally sold them their little daughter Bella. I'm gonna show you. Y'all remind me next class I see y'all to show y'all Bella. She's so freaking cute. Oh my God! But she's so spoiled. She's a spoiled princess. And that little Mexican baby would have had an awesome life because these people have the ability to give
So why they adopt non-black babies?
I don't know.
Why is that
There goes back to it again, y'all. Alright, so look, this is what I want you to notice for next class. We're gonna talk about stereotype, prejudice, and racism. I need to know what is the difference between prejudice, racism, and discrimination. Prejudice, racism, and discrimination. Oh, they do have Tiger Woods in here, so that's type of recognition. Okay? Okey-dokey, and then we'll get into what you call it. But there's a lot of, there's 11.2, there's a lot of definitions, so make sure you review that before we get back together. And next class, we'll dive in. By Wednesday, we'll be done with this chapter though. Anybody who wants to read ahead, kind of, sort of?
Where you want me to send these videos at?
I'm gonna say next chapter to read is 21. I am going to give you, start reading 21 and take notes, okay?
21 what?
Chapter 21.